I asked
It's
because
still a
the
0
next
day.
story, is
It's a forever day.
Mandiant finding some Chinese actors using custom backdoors on some Juniper routers. I mean, we've had this in the past as well, but this specifically is against end of life software and hardware, end of life routers. But Juniper actually issued a patch yesterday, and the same day that Mandiant announced that they found these custom backdoors linked to a Chinese espionage group, UNC 3886. Juniper released emergency patches to patch this vulnerability. Again, it's end of life thing. Costin, have you looked at the IOCs here? We've got a lot of IOCs and telemetry data from the
Um,
Mandiant folks. Who are the folks
I
behind this?
looked. I looked at this, and there's two Yara rules as well, and I noticed that those actually the Yara rules they do catch some older stuff that Mandiant wrote about. So I guess this is a kind of an overview blog post which looks at
Old stuff, right?
UNC's 3886 activity over the past couple of years. And I thought at the same time it was really interesting that they do say there that, by the way, this UNC targeting old routers, considering everything that's going on, it's not Volt Typhoon and it's
Correct.
not Salt Typhoon. So this is, as far as we can say, it's not them. But again, like, yeah, it's pineapples and ananas. So who knows?
The bug, the specific flaw was reported by someone at Amazon, but they made it clear that in at least one instance of malicious exploitation was reported, and they made it very clear not at Amazon.
Mhm.
And
Well,
you know,
I think it's an important mention there, and I would do the same if I was report. I would say that, like, by the way, we don't use any of these old things here. It was never exploited in our infrastructure, so I would do the same, because these days people, like, there's all sorts of podcasts and people jumping to conclusions and speculating and not doing fact checks, so you never know.
what is Tiny Shell? My Mandiant made a point of like making it clear this is Tiny Shell based backdoor. Is that a previously known thing that you guys
It is.
understand what they're trying to
Yeah.
say?
You wanna talk
Yes.
one about Tiny Shell?
I mean, it's so it is like sort of like a really bare bones open source, like as the name suggests, right? Like this sort of like minimal set of functionality, and I believe it's more like broad Unix, right? Like they're using it for FreeBSD, but you basically could just compile this thing out. But what they're saying is you're taking this open source, very minimalistic piece of malware, and then they're tacking onto it other functionality that they can use. So like for more specific, like you want it to turn into a passive backdoor, it's waiting for a very specific packet to turn it on. It might do like a proxy redirection into that network, right? So you say, hey, I'm going to come in through this port. If you see this magic number, then activate that and like redirect me as an internal proxy through that port into the internal network, stuff like that. But just the value of open source.
Some people also might remember it under the name Mibsun. We used to call it Mibsun back in the days. I think during our Yara trainings, there was an exercise for one of these variants, one of these backdoors, if you remember it.
It was a specific Chinese campaign, though, right? With that Mibsun, is that right?
I think there's been like several over the years. That one was compiled for Solaris, the one that we were looking at back in the days. But I mean, yeah, nowadays there's a lot, including for Windows. I've seen it for Windows. What I was thinking here is that it's always interesting, like that routers and this kind of hardware, old hardware, is kind of living in a different world from the rest of the industry. So pretty much every kind of router nowadays, it doesn't get automatic updates. You have to manually, like in some cases, there's not even a button, check for updates, apply updates. Like the most modern things, they have these buttons, but some of the really old things, you need to download the firmware binary file from the vendor's site, where some cases you cannot download it because you need an account, and you cannot get an account unless you pay. So you need to download the firmware, go to the device manually, and upload it and reflash it with the new firmware. So I wonder how difficult it will be, and what impact this emergency security update will have, in the sense that will people actually download and
Oh,
apply
everyone's
it?
running to do it, right? I'm sure
Everyone's
everybody
running.
spends all
Exactly.
day just staring at that website waiting for the next patch.
So
Shout out to
I
Juniper though. They've issued a Juniper malware removal tool. Have you looked at that?
have not. No.
It's interesting. It's a utility to scan for and remove malware running on Juniper network devices, packaged with JuneOS and JuneOS evolved by default. It's similar to antivirus software for desktop, except that it runs on a Juniper device. So that
Do you
might be
need
worth
a
looking at.
Do you need a paid account on the Juniper malware
Almost-
support toolkit
almost
portal
certainly.
support site?
They also have an integrity checker. So I think that, I mean, they must be shipping some signatures in a malware removal tool.
I don't
right?
know, bro. Remember the last time we talked about one of these fucking malware removal tools on like one of these appliances? It was literally like restart the thing so it disinfects itself. That upgraded to this, then run the malware removal tool, which will almost certainly not find any malware because you just disinfected the damn thing. And then it turns out it's just like a bunch of like hash checks, and you can change the list from inside of the fucking operating system. So it's just like, it's beyond performative. It's like 90s antivirus bullshit, and you're being given instructions that like, only make the situation worse.
Hey, shout
which
out
is
to
not to s-
Juniper. I mean,
why are we
we're
shouting out Juniper?
we're yelling at people for releasing a malware removal tool now. Come
We're
on.
yelling at
We're
people.
not yelling.
I'm yelling at people for having like garbage software stacks and this. Look, man, like I don't know what happened under the hood here. I don't know what happened behind the scenes here, but I would be very surprised if like Juniper figured this shit out and called Mandiant to get them involved. This is almost certainly Mandiant figured some shit out, called Juniper, and wrangled them into doing something about it. And fine, if they did something good, then great. But I'm not ready to shout them out. I'm not ready to shout anybody out right now.
I'm just amazed that they actually have a team that's shipping updated signatures into a malware removal tool. It
You
means
mean
that
they
there's
have like some software developers still? Because frankly, I am surprised that there are any engineers left in supporting any of these appliances. Because as far as we can tell, all the code was written 15 years ago, and nobody has. And the patches are literally like, can we change the 2 lines that address this one specific vulnerability in a land of many a vulnerability? Hopefully, without disturbing any of the other vulnerabilities, so the Chinese can just keep doing what they're doing. Right?
It's funny how
You
we
know-
can just interchange the names. You can say Juniper, Sonic Wall,
I can't tell them
Vanti.
apart.
You can't
I
tell them
cannot
apart.
tell them apart.
And nothing changes.
Fuck these companies.
Ah, you know what is the biggest challenge for these companies, and maybe it's not, I think, fully appreciated. The fact that, and I've seen it for myself, when you need to patch a bug in something like that, and you don't have the compiler. You don't have the compiler that was used to compile like the original firmware, because the modern compilers, they'll produce like a huge fat binary that just doesn't fit in the memory of that device anymore. And then you're scrambling to find the compiler from the 1996 that was used to compile that firmware. Like this, I think there's not enough appreciation for like the effort that these companies actually put into keeping all the compilers and the old software needed to rebuild this firmware.
I feel like
from
there's a fundamental problem in there, though.
paleontology ages.
Right? Like, it's not like they're doing us a favor. It's their fucking business. Like, it's literally their business. These appliances don't sell for like $300 or $30, right? Like when we're talking about like D-Link, these like bullshit TP-Link routers, and you're like, yeah, the margins don't even exist. So, expectations are super fucking low, but we're not talking about that. I'm assuming these appliances cost like 5 figures. I'm guessing. And like, I don't know how quickly they're getting end of life. If it's 15 years, okay. But if it's 5, I don't know, bro. And like, frankly, if it is something you are actively maintaining, then having a functioning, pipeline for just compiling patches is not like beyond the realm. I'm just saying, like it's not that I don't want to give them credit. It's not that their jobs aren't hard. It's just that it's literally their job. Like it is the description of their job to like build and maintain these fucking things. So like expecting the bare minimum of like not having these be Swiss cheese for foreign adversaries to do whatever the fuck they want. Moreover, for ransomware groups to do whatever the fuck they want with them. It's not, I'm not ready to pat them on the back for any of it.
All right. Shout out for your malware removal tool. It just it justifies that you know that there's malware there and you're trying to do something.
Bro,
It's better than nothing.
I cannot wait to hear the next report where we also find out that it's just a list of hashes. It can be modified on disk, and the
Something, man.
attackers
It's something.
the attackers saw the patch coming in and were like, "Oh no, absolutely not."